you look at Cardiff City, what's happened recently, I mean, is it taking football away from football just for commercial value?
Well, I can see some inherent dangers, but because a football club is essentially still part of the community, certainly at a club like Cardiff City. I mean, you could argue how much a part of the Manchester community is Manchester United anymore. It's such a global name. It's probably not as important to the profile of life, in the immediacy of Old Trafford, as, for instance, Cardiff City are to Cardiff City Stadium, to Cardiff as a city, to a Welsh presence along with Swansea City in the Premier League. They're all sources of pride, of local pride, which you can tap into. And if an owner comes along and starts to play with that because he just hasn't taken the bother to understand it particularly well, then I think there's a danger at a local level. But I think the bigger danger is just, as I say, testing the public's loyalty to our national game, testing that statement of Murdoch's that there is only really football. I mean, clearly last year, the Olympic Games, I think, got it into the psyche of the nation in a much bigger way than anybody imagined. I mean, people were it was almost like drug addicts had to come off it. The Paralympics came along, and thank goodness there's still something to watch.
It's like Wimbledon, wasn't it?
Yeah, but more so, because that isn't going to happen again. Wimbledon is going to happen again next year. But the sense of almost loss when it all came to an end. What on earth are we going to do now with our time? Yeah. Sport can do that. I mean, can you imagine what a political party would buy to have some public gathering of, let's say, 30,000 people on a fortnightly basis? Yeah. 30,000 people will come together in one place, will pay to be there, will be totally committed to what's happening. Imagine if the Labour Party could have that rally in however many cities that happens in our country. It's an incredible. Imagine if the Church of England could attract those kind of congregations into one place. It's an incredible power, and we've got to be careful how we play with that power, because it might fade. In terms
of power, obviously, as the 2022 World Cups in Qatar, the one before was Russia. Do you believe that's an example of when football has had power, it may not have acted responsibly in selecting those two cups? In particular, Russia, you're a member of Kick It Out. They've recently, openly voiced their stance on homosexuals, and we are, FIFA are bringing the World Cup there. Is that fair? Would you say?
I'm a little uncomfortable about the selection of both venues. I find it unusual that these two venues were chosen at one time. But football is driven by money, which is not a problem. As I always say, football is it's a labour-intensive industry. You can't buy machines to go and play football if the players are no good. It is all about the players. They are the entertainers, and they deserve to rake off the majority of the profits. They are the people that matter. They are who we come to watch. Now, obviously, their salaries have now swollen to levels where football clubs with ambition are struggling to come up with budgets that will enable them to afford the very best players, which will produce the success, which will generate more money. So they're taking huge gambles, massive gambles. I commentated on Valencia this week. They're in a terrible mess financially. And a lot of clubs around Europe and indeed around the UK are just playing this never gambling game of investing in order to try to succeed. It's much easier if you've got a foreign owner with bottomless pockets, as long as he hangs around forever. So consequently, everybody is chasing the dollar. I think UEFA have chased the dollar with the BT money. I think they've taken the money because it's twice what they have had before, probably 50% more than they expected to be offered. So they've taken the money in order to ward off the possibility of a breakaway by the big European clubs. And in a way, who can blame them? Everybody's trying to survive in the short term. And similarly, I think FIFA have probably seen Russia and Qatar as people who can finance a great show on their behalf at a World Cup. But to shake hands with Qatar about a World Cup and then like a month later say, oh, when we're going to have it? Oh, I didn't know it was going to be that hot. I mean, you do start quite apart from the civil rights issues, quite apart from the issues of the deaths in Qatar on the sites of building the stadium. Quite apart from all of that, I mean, it just gives you a suspicion that they've taken the money and asked the questions later.
Okay. Okay. I'm just going to touch on when you talked about how the broadcasting money, everyone's sort of chasing the dollar, and that some clubs are in financial ruin, especially in Spain. Do you not think, though, especially in Spain at the minute, how the broadcasting money is split up, that gap is between the teams is only going to get worse?
Yeah, the rich are going to get richer. There's no question about that. I mean, the Football Association, it's a body of ridicule a lot of the time. But the Football Association is actually still quite democratic, and a lot of the revenue that England generates for the Football Association does filter down through to the grassroots of the game. St George's Park has cost an awful lot of money, but it is used by all facets of the game. And I'm not just talking about the England blind team, the England women's team. Community teams, youth teams can use St George's Park. It is a national facility. Wembley Stadium less so, but it is there to try to generate more income with concerts and so on and so forth. So, the FA are a democratic organisation. They're a governing body, but most of the bodies within football are commercial organisations. We're shareholders. They are trying to make money, or just trying to stay afloat. And so consequently their thinking probably isn't going to be long term. It is going to be how we're going to pay the next wage bill. And listen, that doesn't mean that football is doomed. It's been that way for quite a long time in actual fact, and football seems to get by because of its popularity. But it's the popularity of football that is the key to everything. And if that popularity is played with, then the knock-on effect, then the Valencias will go under.